Everybody, good morning. How are you? I hope you guys are doing well. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and today I want to talk a little bit about this crazy bankruptcy. Vice Media, one of the biggest, most proud media outlets on earth, is officially declaring bankruptcy. And I thought it was just so fascinating because I wanted to talk about how a company that makes $600 million a year in revenue could actually find itself in bankruptcy court. And also at the end, to stick around to the end of the podcast, I'm going to give you a stock that I'm going to buy right now that I believe is going to do well in the future. So get comfortable, buckle up, seatbelt. We're going to get started on the Black Financial Channel right now. Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I'm your friendly neighborhood finance professor. On the Black Financial Channel, we talk about Black wealth and Black economics every single day, many times a day. You don't have to be Black to be here, but I am Black first, and I cannot apologize for that. So if you are also B1, feel free to put a B1 in the chat, or at the very least, I hope that you believe in building wealth for your family. That's really important. So today, I want to talk a little bit about this company called Vice Media. Now, I want to ask you all a question. Give me a yes or no. How many of you have heard of a company called Vice? How many of you have heard of a company called Vox Media? Give me a yes in the chat. Also, give me a yes in the chat if you've ever heard of a company called BuzzFeed. Give me yeses if you've heard of any of those three companies, Vice, Vox, or BuzzFeed. What I'm going to do, and I love you too, by the way. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to break down this bankruptcy. It's so crazy. Vice literally is this company that had a ton of users. They were all over the place. The media was massive, but yet they're in bankruptcy court today, and that's kind of a big deal. It's a big deal because it is an enormous fall from grace, and it's really almost embarrassing, but it's really a great financial lesson in terms of understanding how the lack of ability to sort of prepare for changing economic environments can cause you to end up looking like Boo Boo the Fool with your business. So Vice started off pretty powerful. At one point, Vice was worth about $5.7 billion, with billion with a B. Billion with a B. So Vice was one of the hottest media companies out there, as well as Vox and BuzzFeed and all that. And these companies were just pumping money into Vice like it was crazy, like it was going out of style. And this was during an era where money was cheap. This is an era where it was easy to, especially if you were white, to go raise like insane amounts of money. Black businesses couldn't really do that. We built our business. We had to bootstrap everything. We had to generate, we had to pay our expenses with actual cash flow, not with debt. And the thing about that is that sometimes it can make you feel like you're not able to accelerate and grow as fast as you'd like to grow. A lot of Black-owned businesses struggle because they can't get access to the capital that they deserve, right? In fact, give me a yes if you or somebody is running a Black-owned business that could use a $100,000 loan, just a $200,000 loan. Hey, give me a yes if you know what I'm talking about. That really sort of mutes the growth of Black-owned businesses, whereas you have certain businesses in the white community that can grow super fast because they're able to go raise, $100 million just like that. They're able to go raise $200 million. If we had a Black-owned business right now, we could go raise, $200 million. I could literally employ every single person watching this video right now and give you a nice six-figure job to do what you do best, and we could grow this company together. Raising capital when you're Black is really difficult. This is why in the reparations conversation, you don't just want to talk about the cash payments. You also want to talk about access to capital. So Vice, they're white privilege. This is the big part of white privilege they don't talk about. They talk about white privilege with police, white privilege, in terms of how people treat you at the grocery store. But another aspect of white privilege is the ability to raise insane amounts of money. So Vice was out here just raising money like crazy, partying like it's 1999, as that old song used to say, and literally living it up. Well, there's the downside to getting access to that much capital. It is in finance, we call this the free cash flow problem. There's a whole list. There's thousands of research papers written about this. And the free cash flow problem, basically, it says this. It says that when you have a bunch of money in your pocket, you act a damn fool. Yeah, that's what it says. That's the breakdown. That's like the simple breakdown of this very complex financial theory. So how many of you, for example, how many of you have ever had a situation when you got your paycheck? Maybe you were a teenager like I was, and I would get my paycheck from Wendy's. And I would get like $200, and I didn't put it in the bank. I didn't go and I didn't have bills to pay, so I would just go get it cash. Anybody remember that feeling, that high you felt when you cashed your check? and you had a pocket full of money. You had like a bunch of 20s in your pocket. Big wad of money, nothing less than a 20, right? From the song Dope Man. And you just felt like you were never going to run out of money, right? Well, what did you do? You would make it rain. You would just go places. You would, you go to the store. Something would cost $2. You buy it. Friend needs $5. Okay, here you go. Right. And you're not thinking about that. Right. So then after a while, though, what happens every time? It happened. I remember what happened to me every time. And this was when I started to begin to come into my financial consciousness. I started noticing, I said, man, it seems like whenever I get paid, I feel rich. But then within a week, all the money's gone. Right. It's like little tiny bites. And this is the free cash flow problem. When companies have too much money, they overspend, just like you overspend. Or maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Just like you might have overspent when you had extra money sitting around. So what I learned eventually was that based on my own financial personality, that I didn't need to have a whole lot of money just sitting around. To this day, literally, I have a PhD in finance, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change. It doesn't necessarily change your habits, though, right? It's like just because you know how to stay fit doesn't mean you want to get up and go to the gym every morning. So one of the things I literally do to this day is I keep very little money in my checking account because I trick my brain into believing that I'm struggling. I trick my brain into believing that I'm broke. So what I do is I move the money away so that I have a hard time accessing the money. So if somebody says, hey, can I get a couple grand? And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I don't really have a ton of money in my checking account. I don't want to give you any money. But really, I've got like literally just a nice stack of change invested in stock. Another stack of change put into real estate, right? So the money's over there, but I don't see it. And when I don't see it, it's like out of sight, out of mind. So that's one way on a personal level to avoid the free cash flow problem. Vice did not do that. Vice literally lived in 2017 and thought that it was always going to be 2017. They forgot this fundamental truth about mathematics that says that 2017 eventually turns into 2018, which eventually turns into 2019, which eventually turns into 2020. What does that mean? That means that economic conditions are going to change. Economic conditions are always going to change. This too shall pass. We're going to have a recession this year. Who cares? It's 1 year. It's 1 year. 2024 is coming, 2025, 2026, 2027. You got to look at the big picture. So Vice didn't see the big picture, in my opinion. They saw the $5.7 billion valuation and said, man, look at us. They said, woof, if we're worth $5.7 billion now, just wait. We'll be bigger than CNN. We'll be bigger than Disney. We'll be worth $10 billion. Then we'll be worth $20 billion. They started thinking about what goes up, but they didn't realize that what goes up can also go down. So as a result, Vice was getting all this money. They had the free cash flow problem. They're just making it rain on everything. Probably picked up a lot of fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are the devil. Like a lot of rappers and basketball players do that. Like they go and they start making money, so they end up getting a whole bunch of extra babies, mamas, where the child support don't stop till that baby's 18. They get a bunch of car notes. They start paying their buddies rent, right? All these fixed expenses kick you in your entire ass when the economy goes south. When suddenly the credit markets freeze up or the Fed increases interest rates, guess what? Easy money ain't easy no more. So Vice Media goes from having a valuation of over $5 billion to not even being able to get a valuation of $1 billion just a few years later. And I would argue, again, I can't armchair quarterback the running of this company. I'm not in this company. I don't know exactly what this company did or doesn't do. But I can say that if I had been there, you know what I would have told him? I would have told him what I tell y'all. I would have said, it's best to buy your umbrellas before the rain starts. It's best to buy your umbrellas when the sun is out. Because when it starts raining, umbrellas get real expensive. It means basically that when times are good, you always have to prepare for when times are going to be bad. Because this too shall pass. At some point, the sun will go down and it's going to turn into a thunderstorm. Give me a yes if you follow what I'm saying. Give me a yes if you get this. This is important to get. This is why people end up in desperate financial situations, especially you're living paycheck to paycheck. Your job is good. The money's flowing. You're making it rain. And then, boom, one day your job is gone. The next day, your car breaks down. The next day, something terrible happens in your family, a medical condition, a medical emergency where somebody can't work anymore. And then suddenly you're going to have to lean on whatever nuts you have been storing for the winter. I'm willing to bet you that Shane Smith and Vice ain't got no nuts. I'm willing to bet you that they didn't prepare for when they wouldn't be the hottest media outlet in town and they wouldn't be able to go and raise billions of dollars from other companies. So that at that point, that's when they started getting their butts kicked. There is no reason, in my view, why a company with $500 million a year in revenue should be going bankrupt, other than this idea that perhaps the company over leveraged itself, thinking that it was going to grow, grow, grow. And the thing about growth is that growth is expensive. These high valuations came from high growth expectations, and that's beautiful when it works, right? It's beautiful when it works, but when it doesn't work, it sucks. Because what happens is you put an extraordinary amount of pressure on yourself to the point where just performing at a good level is not good enough. You have to be extraordinary. So these valuations, these lofty valuations that were put on Vice, were literally like having the weight of the earth on your back. So really, I would almost have said, at that time, look, I know we're going 100 miles an hour down the freeway. I just need to go about 60 miles an hour. That's nice and fast. I can get anywhere I need to go going 60 miles an hour. I don't have to go 120. And that's what capitalism does. That's the dark side of capitalism. Again, I'm not a Marxist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. But I read some of the literature in Marxism. And Karl Marx had a beautiful critique of capitalism. Capitalism is like a fast car. It gets you down the road quickly, but when the crashes happen, everybody dies. The crashes are brutal, right? So I agree with Karl Marx's critique. Where I get off the bus, and the reason I never became a Marxist and had no interest in that is because he didn't offer an adequate replacement. I'm like, where's the replacement? So my replacement is Black wealth building. Black economic intelligence is not the same as capitalism. Don't you dare, if you ever see me in the street, don't you dare ever call me a black capitalist, because I might tackle you. I might push you down right there. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do nothing to you. I'm gonna give you a hug. And then I'm gonna explain to you that I'm not a black capitalist because I don't believe capitalism is a solution for black people. But I do believe deeply in free enterprise. I do believe deeply in business ownership. I do believe deeply in us creating our own jobs, educating our own children. I do believe in building black wealth. So do you give me a yes if you understand the difference between hardcore capitalism and simply building wealth and developing institutions that allow you to sustain yourself economically and create the freedom that you actually deserve. That is what freedom looks like. Capitalism is kind of like a fancy type of slavery. It's like it's like being in a prison, except the prison is like a luxury hotel, but you can't leave your room or they're going to shoot you, right? Nobody wants to live like that, right? So remember, money can either make you free or it can make you a bigger slave. I think that Vice's financial transactions, from what I've read over the years, put them in deeper forms of slavery. So anyway, I'm going to keep telling the story on Vice. Stick around to the end of this video and I will give you a stock. I promise you, I'll give you a stock that I'm going to buy right now. That's my way of hopefully asking you if you'll hang out with me. I'll share with you what I'm about to invest in so we can all make some money together. You saw one of the investments that I was talking about a while back, Netflix. Netflix stock. Let me show you what Netflix stock has done in the last year. As you hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button. Oh, also, I'm going to be in Dallas May 19th. So if you'd like to join us in Dallas for Black Wealth Summit and Training Camp, I'm going to be there with my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, who's a financial therapist. And also I'm going to be there with Tim Jackson, who is a real estate expert. So if you'd like to join us in Dallas, just go to boycewatkins.com. I'll be there May 19th and 20th. All right. And also the All Black National Convention is happening in October. So feel free to take a look at boycewatkins.com to get that information too, if you'd like to speak or volunteer or buy a ticket. All right. So here's Netflix stock, right? Netflix is in the media business, just like Vice. And Vice made me think about Netflix a little bit. Netflix is a stock that I've owned shares in for a long time. And you see that this stock has gone up 82% in the last year, right? That's a hell of an investment. That's a hell of an ROI. Why has Netflix gone up so much in the last year? Well, partly because they had to fall in order for them to rise. They had to go through hell to get back to heaven. They had to get slapped into reality to get back to a place where they were actually financially stable. I remember Netflix doing something that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me a few years ago. This was back when Netflix stock was trading at about $500 a share, something like that. Right now it's at $339. So Netflix still has not returned to its old glory, but it's been doing quite well in the last year. I bought the shares when they were low, so that's why my family was able to make tens of thousands of dollars on Netflix stock. But let me tell you about Netflix. I'm going to tell you about Netflix because it relates to Vice. I'll never forget, I remember I had a long conversation with Will Smith's brother, Harry. Will Smith's brother, Harry, I never met Will, but his brother, Harry. It's weird. I don't know Will Smith. I don't know Chris Rock, but I know I met their brothers. Chris Rock's brother used to call me all the time. And it wasn't a real famous brother. It was another brother. And he would just call me. And I didn't know why, but he would call me. And I liked the guy. He was a nice guy. And Will Smith's brother, Harry, though, was one of the most intriguing people I've ever met. He's super smart. He's a financial guy, and we would sit and talk for hours about wealth and money and investing. And he every now and then he would talk about the business models of Hollywood and the things that he and Will ran into during the years where they were making movies and making money. And one thing I remember Harry telling me, and I hope Harry doesn't mind me sharing this because I think it's good for a financial lesson, is he said that Netflix is outbidding everybody. This was maybe about 2018, something like that. He said Netflix blew everybody else out the water. He said back in the 90s when Will did movies like Hitchcock, or I think it was Hitchcock and the other one where he was the last man on earth or something. I don't remember what they call it, but I don't keep up with all the movies. But anyway, he said that in those movies, those deals were really good. The money was really strong. And then the movie studios went to a different business model where they started paying the actors, instead of giving them like a percentage of the gross, they would give them a percentage of the profit. And that became kind of a scam because they could literally come back and say, well, sorry, we didn't make a profit on this movie. Like for example, Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken, to this day, they swear that they never made a profit on Harry Potter. How in the hell can you put out a franchise like Harry Potter and not make a profit? I mean, are you kidding me right now? How in the holy, seriously, Harry Potter, let's look at total box office revenues for Harry Potter movies. Total box office revenues for Harry Potter. Let me see. This is so funny. The total box office revenues for Harry Potter movies. Let's see. They say one of them is the film series is the fourth highest grossing film series of all time with 7.7 billion that they've made on the movies alone. This doesn't include all the merchandise. This doesn't include live events. This doesn't include all the other tangential revenue streams that will come off of Harry Potter, amusement parks. It doesn't include any of that. It just includes the film. $7.7 billion, and Warner Brothers still, at least based on what Harry and I were talking about that day, they still claim that they didn't make a profit. Well, that's because you can manipulate those numbers, right? Well, here's the thing. So going back to media, and we're talking about the bankruptcy of Vice and Vox and BuzzFeed and all these companies that are struggling. They used to fly high. One thing that Harry mentioned, I remember that Harry's Will Smith's brother, he's a smart guy, looks just like him. I remember him saying that Netflix just bid like an insane amount of money for some of their movies, and that they just had to turn away from the other studios and go to Netflix. And so Netflix was paying a ton of money for their content. And then I saw something, and then I looked at it, I said, well, it makes sense because they have all these subscribers. They're making $2 billion a month just because it's February, right? They're making $2 billion a month just because it's August. They don't have to put out blockbuster films to make their $2-3 billion a month. So they got money to burn. And that's a beautiful thing, cash flow wise. But here's what Netflix did that didn't make any sense. I remember reading that Netflix and their former CEO, Reed Hastings, who happens to be married to a black woman, which is just a fun fact. I don't know. Anyway, I married a black woman too, so I get it why you're attracted to black women. That makes sense. Black women are awesome. And anyway, they're making $2 billion a month. And I remember they went out and they borrowed like $14 billion, like right in the middle of that. And I remember thinking to myself, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I don't know everything, like I've had my doctorate for 20 years in finance. I don't know everything, but I know enough to say when something doesn't make sense to me. And I said, I don't understand why if you're making 2 to 3 billion a month in cash flow from subscribers, why do you have to go deeper in debt like that? That doesn't make sense. Well, it does make sense if you have just insanely unrealistic growth expectations. It does make sense if B, money is easy to obtain. You have which then creates the free cash flow problem. So what happened then was you saw in media where a lot of these companies put themselves in an impossible position. They put themselves in a position where the expectations were just unfreaking believable. And so what I'm going to do is show you all a chart right now. I want you to look and see what was going on with Netflix. And the thing is that this stock price that I'm about to show you, you look here, and I want you to look at Netflix stock over the last 5 years. Look at where it was at its peak. It was at $690 at its peak. right? So what happened is that this high stock price, similar to Vox's insanely high $5.7 billion valuation, came from unrealistic growth expectations. It comes from these high stock prices come from the fact that there are people who believe in these companies and to the ends of the earth and think they're going to just grow forever. And Netflix had put itself in a position where it could not continue to grow at the rate it had been growing up until that point. There's no way you could just until infinity add another 2 million subscribers every single month or whatever their number was. It was crazy. I said they're going to eventually run out of human beings. Like, what are they going to do, get subscribers on Mars? Like, so then that's when companies start getting desperate. They start doing things like cooking the books and inflating the numbers and lying about the subscriber numbers and doing all these other fraudulent things, or the stock just crashes like Netflix did. Netflix stock crashed. It went from almost $700 a share to as low as it looks like 180 or 190. And I feel very sorry for anybody who bought into that. But here's the thing. Some of you may have been tempted to buy that stock when it was trading at that insane level. Why? Well, because maybe you just learned how to invest. There were a lot of people who became overnight financial experts in 2020 because making money was very easy. Capital was readily available. Companies were growing like crazy, and people were literally watching their money double in a couple of weeks. So everybody suddenly it was like, oh, I'm a financial expert. I can teach you how to invest in the stock market. No, you can't. Stop it. Because you've never seen what it looks like when stuff gets real. You've never seen what the market looks like when everything crashes. You've never seen what a Vox or a Vice or a BuzzFeed looks like when the valuations suddenly come crashing down and you're dealing with expenses up here and debt service up here, but your revenue's here. $600 million a year is still a lot of money. But the problem is that this company didn't prepare for the downside. So now they're sitting up in bankruptcy court looking stupid. Shane Smith, who once was a genius, is now looking stupid. I'm sure I'm sure he walked away with some cash before they pushed him out of there. But what I said when I looked at the history, I saw some stuff about sexual harassment, which instantly will kill your value because at that point you're no longer the darling of you're no longer the darling of Silicon Valley. You're suddenly now you've been stigmatized now, right? And that's the touchy thing about sexual harassment allegations is that an allegation will make people not want to go around you, right? Jonathan Majors, for example, is learning that. Well, his is worse than sexual harassment, but seriously, your son needs to understand that when he goes to work, if he goes to work in corporate America, he probably shouldn't be sleeping with anybody that he works with. He shouldn't, even if she consents. He should not have any intimate relations with anybody. When all the white folks go to the bar after work and get drunk, take your black ass home, or you go there and you drink some damn ginger ale so you can get them to reveal their secrets. Don't you dare walk up in there thinking that you white. Next thing you know, somebody accuses you of something you did not do. You'd be looking like Michael Irvin, who got pushed out by the NFL Network, or pretty much pushed down, or whatever you want to call it, even though there's no evidence that Michael Irvin did anything wrong. When you're black, the rules are different. And I hate having to be the guy to say it that way, but maybe your daddy never said it to you. Well just call me Uncle Boyce, because that's what I'm going to do. All right, so anyway, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. Just a reminder, I have a new book out. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. The reviews are very, very good. It's 10 simple rules for any family that wants to build generational wealth that's going to last for the next 200 years. Have your kids memorize these rules. Apply these rules. In Dallas, we're actually going to talk about how to implement this in your family. I have 100 slides, and I'm going to actually put that study guide up actually as a separate book in case you want to get a companion to this. And it's very good. I can guarantee you're going to love it. So feel free to go to Amazon and take a look at the book. Also, we have it on BoyceWatkins.com. There's a training on how to make money without working. So feel free to go take a look at that. So hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. We're talking about Vice Media and why Vice Media is now officially declaring bankruptcy. And I'm almost done, and I'll talk about that stock that I like right at the end, and we're almost done. Just give me a couple more minutes. I want to break this down. Also, one reminder, this podcast is also on Spotify. So if you go to Spotify and look up Boyce Watkins, you should find it there. All right, so Vice, from what I understand, they at one point they had 3,000 employees. They were worth $5.7 billion. Now their latest valuation, from what I understand, is about $225 million. So now, because they weren't able to secure the bag and protect the bag when they had the bag, now they're ending up selling themselves for cheap. because they took themselves too seriously and thought that their valuation couldn't go down. Now they're looking crazy. Last night, you might have seen me on Dr. Boyce TV, where I did another podcast about a guy who's really blown the bag. Ja Morant is in the NBA. Ja Morant is suspended now for flashing a gun online or whatever. And I think that that's a debatable topic, though, because, if you think about it, is there anything wrong with showing your gun if it's legal? You see, somebody showed me a picture of a white guy in the NBA who had some hunting rifles, and he took a picture with hunting rifles, like one on each arm, and they didn't suspend him for that. So that really made me rethink the Ja Morant thing. But either way, though, Ja is in a situation where he's probably going to, if he's not careful, he could end up losing over $1 billion in family wealth. His current contract is just a $338 million contract. And the reason I say just is because he's 23 years old. By the time he's done with the NBA, players will be signing contracts for over $1 billion. They'll be signing shoe deals for over $1 billion. So if you took Ja's money and assume he invested a small percentage of that in the S&P 500 until he was, say, 60 or 70 years old, this man could easily die with over $10 billion in family wealth. So, Ja, if you're listening, man, buddy, I encourage you to watch the podcast. Don't get offended by what I say. Sometimes I'm just an asshole because sometimes it comes out, just me being honest. That's what I do as a dad. I can't help it, but I'm not intending to be. I'm an unintentional asshole. But at the same time, I just want us to understand what it looks like to protect wealth. If you're protecting your wealth, you make strategic decisions that protect your wealth. If you're not protecting your wealth, then eventually your wealth disappears. All right. So anyway, somebody says I should do radio. The reason I never did radio is because number one, no radio network would sign somebody like me. I'm a little bit too pro-black and too honest. It's the same reason you think about it. Howard University invited Joe Biden to speak. Who's the king of mass incarceration, but they've never considered inviting Dr. Claude Anderson, who lives right down the street, and he's one of the greatest economic minds of this generation. And I think you really want to understand just the gravity of that kind of thinking, because that's the reason I believe that Howard University is always in a financial bind. That's why they can't raise the money they deserve to raise, because they're producing lots of black employees. They should be producing captains of industry. For example, Robert Smith spoke at Morehouse. It wasn't Howard, he spoke in Morehouse, and Robert Smith agreed to pay the student loans of everybody in the graduation. I thought that was really awesome. I really love that. But what I really think Robert Smith also needs to do is create a $1 billion fund that will allow those graduates to get trained on how to start businesses and be able to get $100,000 to $200,000 in capital to get their business off the ground. Because people that sustain and fund institutions are not employees. The people that can buy that $100 million building are typically people that found companies. I went to go visit a school in Milwaukee, and I saw this big, beautiful building. They said that one of our alumni bought this building, and he did it because he was the co-founder of Intel. Those are the types of people you got to produce in your community. We can do that on a systematic level, but we have to sort of change our thinking if we're not going to do that. Byron Allen is another great guy who made some really great moves. So think about this. Byron Allen was a comedian on TV, but now he's a mogul. He's far bigger than a comedian. He wasn't the guy who was trying to be seen on television and tell jokes. He went from being a clown to being the king. So he actually had a show called Comics Unleashed, where he would just bring comics in and let them sit around and tell their jokes. And he's sitting back like the owner of the club, just watching everybody else get drunk, and he's sitting back collecting money. That was the type of thinking Byron Allen had. He had boss level thinking, and that's why Byron Allen has achieved a boss level existence. So anyway, since I promised you guys I would tell you which stock that I like this week, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the stock I'm about to buy is Humana. Humana, HUM is the ticker symbol. Humana is, based on my research, a great investment, great company. I believe that as the market gets better, as the economy gets better, after the debt ceiling crisis is done, you're going to see Humana do well over the next 5 to 10 years. So if you want to make some money, feel free to go buy some shares of Humana. This is not investing advice. This is just me telling you what I'm about to do with my money. All right. So last but not least, one thing I'll say is that with Vox, what I saw with this company is I was looking at the fact that they had a $5.7 billion valuation, which now they're selling themselves cheap for $225 million. I saw not just the sexual harassment thing that happened in their camp, but also there was a lot of infighting, a lot of fighting. This is another thing I talk about a lot in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, is that one of the things you must understand is that when you build your economic tribe, When you build your economic tribe, I need you to understand that you have to have codes of conduct and procedures to manage conflict resolution. One of the things that we found in the Black Business School when we created the first ever Black Financial Therapy Department, where we work with the best Black therapists on earth to figure out the psychological barriers to building Black wealth, is that we found that Black people, because we have so much trauma, we fight. We fight a lot. We end up fighting a lot. And the reason we fight a lot is because we get easily hurt. You get easily triggered. Next thing you know, you cut off ties with somebody who could have helped you make money. And I've seen this. I've done this myself. We've all, because I grew up traumatized. I don't know how many of you grew up and experienced some trauma. If you want to understand the level of your trauma, go look up the ACEs test. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Adverse Childhood Experiences. Give me a yes if you went through some stuff when you were a kid that just wasn't fair. Maybe you got bullied. Maybe your parent abandoned you. Maybe you didn't have a father in the house, or whatever. Maybe you were in poverty, or maybe something happened to you in terms of sex or something, right? Give me a yes if you went through something like that. Well, all those things matter. You carry that with you, and it affects your ability to engage in the important task of trust, which is critical for building any kind of wealth. If you can't trust people, if you're one of those people that says, I don't trust nobody ever, or people easily lose your trust, that's a scary place to be, because you're effectively not going to have the ability to form relationships with other people. And the thing about wealth building is that wealth is typically built by teams. There's no one person who could run Apple. Apple's a $3 trillion company or something like that. No one person could run Apple by themselves. No matter how smart they are, no matter how hard they work, no matter how capable they are. So with Black people, you got to understand that not only do you have to deal with the trauma, but someone else mentioned this today, which made me think, is that there is a consistent effort to remind Black women that they're strong and independent. And the word independent is very dangerous, because that's encouraging you to go out and be an island. So then next thing you know, you look at the data that shows that single Black mothers have the lowest net worth of any group of people in the United States. And even the ones that are doing well, they're exhausted, they're lonely, they're stressed out, and they're mad. Why? Well, because in some cases you're doing a job by yourself that was designed for two people, two, maybe three people. It might have taken you, your husband, your mama, and his mama to raise them kids together and provide for the household. But you're doing all that by yourself. That's a lot of work. So effectively, that ability to form healthy relationships might require some therapy. I never went to therapy because I was sad. I've never been really depressed or had anxiety. Anxiety, I don't feel it very often. And also a depression, I kind of know how to fight through it. I exercise a lot. I do testosterone inducing exercises that get me going. So I've never dealt with depression or anxiety. The reason I love going to therapy is because I want to be a more balanced person and show up properly for the people that I want to work with and partner with in various aspects of my life. When I want to partner with my children in business or in life, I want to show up as the right kind of dad. When I want to partner with my wife in this marriage, I want to show up as the right kind of husband. When I want to partner with y'all in terms of building things for the community, I want to show up as the right kind of Dr. Boyce. I don't want to show up as an egomaniac or insecure, some insecure egomaniac. I don't want to show up as some narcissistic bastard. I don't want to show up as a complete asshole. I know sometimes I say stuff that hurts people's feelings and makes them mad. I get that. I'm working on that. God ain't through with me yet. But at the end of the day, that's what you do if you want to connect and work with other people. Okay. So that's just my 2 cents. I encourage you to believe in yourself. I encourage you to build. I encourage you to find other fellow builders that you can build with. In Dallas, May 19th, that's just in 4 days, actually. So if you still want to fly down, you can. I'm going to be there for a 2-day Black Wealth Summit and Training Camp. My wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, is coming. She's a licensed therapist. We've done a lot of work on financial therapy lately. And also Tim Jackson, who is a real estate expert, is going to be there talking about using real estate to build wealth and buy homes and things like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So feel free to join us. Just go to boycewatkins.com if you'd like to learn more. And also tomorrow we have Stock Market Tuesday. So if you'd like to join my stock market investing class or do a free trial, you can actually go to, I'm going to put the URL on the screen. It's theblackstockmarketprogram.com. theblackstockmarketprogram.com. I can't find the URL. Here we go. There it is. I'll put it on the screen. So feel free to do a trial, and then you can ask me questions and come to class, and I answer all the students' questions about investing and stuff like that. So don't be afraid. I got you. We'll get this done. All right. So do me a favor. Hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. Again, my stock pick of today is Humana. I like the company. I'm going to invest in it. So nothing's guaranteed, though. So never, ever think that anything's guaranteed. But based on my research, I think this company is going to do well. I wouldn't be surprised if the stock makes you some money. So take care, guys. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. And have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Peace.